Subpart A, General, the 231. The purpose and the scope. This part describes the minimum federal safety standards of all steam-propelled locomotives operated on the railroads to which the part applies. The part does not restrict the railroad from adopting and enforcing additional or most stringent requirements not inconsistent with this part. 232, applicability, except for the provided by the paragraph B of the section. This part applies to the railroad that operates the steam locomotive. This part B, the part does not apply to the railroad as the track gauge is less than 24 inches. A railroad that operates exclusively on freight train does so only on the track inside of the installation that is not part of the general system of transportation. 3. Rapid transit operations in an urban area that are not connected in a general system of transportation, or a railroad that operates in passenger train does not only on the track inside installation that the insular and etc operations are limited to separate enclaving such as the way they were no responsible acceptations for the safety of the public except for the business guests of the license of the railroad affiliated entity. The trespasser would be affected of the operation will be considered insular if one or more of the following exist in line: a public highway, railway crossing that is in use at any grade of the railroad crossing that is in use, a bridge over the public road, waters used in commercial navigation. 4. A common corridor with any of the railroad and etc. with its operation conducting 30 feet to of those of any of the other railroad. See Appendix A for Part 209 for the current statement of the Federal Railroad Administration policy for the exercising this jurisdiction. Part C. 230.3 Implementation. Except for as provided in paragraph A and C of the section, a locomotive of the owner or operator shall perform 1472 service days inspection that meets the requirements of 230.17 and locomotive flues, which requirement to be removed pursuant to 230.10 the regulations of the effective prior to January 18, 2000. See 49, the code Title 49 Code Federal Regulations, Part 299, revised October 1st, 1978. At the time the locomotive owner or operator completes the inspection, it must begin to comply with the rest of the provisions of this part upon in such a time, except for the provided in paragraphs A and C through the section compliance with the regulations in effect with January 18th. 2000 of CFR C40 and Title 49 Code Federal Regulations Part 200 to 299 revised October 1978 will constitute the full compliance with this part. Any interested person may obtain an October 1978 revision of the 49 CFR parts of the S7 299 contacting the Federal Railroad Administration Office of the Chief of Counsel, 407th Street, Southwest Washington, D.C. 20590 on 1 year after January 18, 2000. The following section of this part must be complied with: the January 18, 2001, 237, 23051, 23057, 23068, 23070, 23085, 23087, 23011, 23115, 23116. Interim flue remove extensions. The Federal Railroad Administration continues to consider a request for the flue removal extension under the provision of 230.10 of the regulation in effect prior to the January 18, 2000. See the Title 49 Code Federal Regulations Part 299 revised October 1978 until the January 18, 2002. Petition of the special consideration locomotive owner or the operator may petition the Federal Railroad Administration for special considerations of this part implementation respects to any of the locomotive of either the full party satisfied requirements of the 230.17 within the 3-year period of September 25th, 1998, provided that the locomotive is in full compliance with 230.17 at the time petition and is actually filed number 1. The NL note: an example of the locomotive has received a proper boiler inspection after the September 25th, 1995, pursuant to the 230.10, 230.11 regulation in effect for the prior January 18, 2000, has not been had its a Federal Railroad Administration Form Number 4 updated. The locomotive owner or the operator may update and verify the Federal Railroad Administration Form 9 Number 4 for the locomotive subput. Submit a timely petition for the request of retroactive credit for the boiler inspection, seeing that Title 49 Code Federal Regulations Part 200 to 999 revised October 1978. The petition process. Petition must be filed by the January 18, 2000. Must be accompanied by the relevant documents considered, including the Federal Railroad Administration Form number, the 4, see the appendix of the part calculated in accordance with 23017. All records demonstrate the number of the days that the locomotive has been in service. Based upon the documentation provided by the Federal Railroad Administration, calculate the numbers of service to the locomotive accrued with no by the petitioner the number of services that remain of the locomotive's 1,472 days service cycle. Petition should be sent in the Federal Railroad Administration by form of registered mail to ensure the record and delivery. The FRA will investigate these petitions and respond to the petition within 1 year of the receipt. The Federal Railroad Administration is response by some registered mail to ensure the record of the delivery is created with the response of the Federal Railroad Administration may grant the petition, deny it. The Federal Railroad Administration grants the petition entirely. The revised requirement will become effectively upon the receipt of the FRA's response unless the Federal Railroad Administration response indicates otherwise. The FRA denies the petition. The rule will become effective as provided in the paragraph of this section. FRA silence. Anyone who does not receive a response within 1 year of the date of this petition, whether the administration postal clerk must notify the FRA response has been received, the notification should be provided by the FRA in some form of registered mail to ensure the record of the delivery. Upon receipt of the notification, the FRA will ensure the response is either issued, reissued, or as soon as possible. The interim, however, the operator who is entered into the inspection costs of the under the limits of the effective prior to the January 18, 2000 of the Title 49 Code Federal Regulation Part 2 through 100 through 999 revised October 1978 will be allowed to remain in service without conducting the required inspection under the 23017 of the additional 6 months until the receipt of the FRA decision, whichever occurs first. Penalties. Any person who violates a requirement of this part causes the violation any such requirement in subject to civil penalty of at least $500, no more than $1,100,000 per violation, except for the penalties may be assessed against the individual only for the willful violation, grossly neglecting violation, partly repeated violation has been created imminent hazard to death of an injury to the person has caused the death of an injury. Penalty not to exceed $22,000 per violation may be assessed each day the violation continues. Such to constitute separate offenses. See Appendix A, the Part 209 for the Statement of Agency Civil Penal Policy. Any person who knowingly and willfully falsifies the record or report record by part may be subject to criminal penalties in the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 21311. 2305, the preemptive effect of the Locomotive Boiler Inspection Act of Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 2701, 2703 preempts all state laws, regulations concerning locomotive Napper versus the Atlantic Coast Line R&R. The 22072 U.S. Standard 605, 1926. However, the FRA believes that Congress did not intend the preemptive state laws, regulations concerning the railroad operations over the Federal Railroad Administration does not exercise jurisdiction. Therefore, it is issuing the part of the FRA intent of the state laws regulation applicable to railroad operation, and this to which the part does not apply. The insular tourist operation must not be preempted. 236. A person subject to the requirement of this petition may petition the administrator FRA to the waiver compliance of such a requirement. The filing of such a petition does not affect the personal responsibility of the compliance requirement while in the petition is being considered. Each petition with the waiver under this section may be fulfilled in a manner containing the information required by Part 211 of this chapter. In administration, find the waiver compliance in the public interest and consistent with the railroad safety. The administrator may grant the waiver subject to any of the condition the administrator deems necessary. Whenever the waiver is granted, the administrator publishes a notice containing the response of the granting the waiver. All waivers of every form type of the requirement of any order the regulating implementation of the Locomotive Boiler Inspection Act of 336 Statute 913 as amended applicable to one or more steam locomotives shall pass the January 18, 2000 Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 2702 unless comply with the grant waiver of the filled with reinstatement prior to the date of the Office of Safety, Federal Railroad Administration, 407th Street, Washington, D.C. 25590. FRA will review the waiver and notify the application whether the waiver has been continued. 230.07 Responsibility of compliance. The locomotive owner and the operator directly responsible for ensuring all the requirements satisfied and entity's primary responsible compliance with this part. Although the duties imposed by the parts are generally stated in this term, duties of railroad steam locomotives operators, all persons include the conductor of the railroad who informs the function part conferred with this part performing the function in accordance with this part. Chapter 207 of the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code make it unlawful for any of the railroad to permit the use to be used on the line and any steam locomotive tender unless the steam locomotive tendered most parts in prudency and proper condition and the safe operating service which they are part put without unnecessary danger of the personal injury have been inspected and tested or required to by this part. The definitions. Any use in this part, the terms used in this section have the following definitions: administrator, the administrator of the Federal Railroad Administration, or the administrator delegate. The alteration, the change of the boiler with the effects of the pressure retention capability rating changes as considered alteration. ANSI, American National Standard Institute, API, American Petroleum Institute, ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers. The boiler surface, the boiler interior of all spaces inside the boiler occupied with the water, steam under the pressure, also surfaces instead of the spaces exposed to the water and the steam. The boiler exterior, the opposite surface of the components directly exposed to the boiler interior that includes the fire side of the firebox sheets, the brake, a fracture results of the completion of the separation into the parts code of the original construction. The manufacturing industry code in effect with the boiler was constructed in that code is known when the closest temporary date code may be used and provides and does not predate the construction date of the boiler. The crack, a fracture that is completion of the separation, which without completion of the separation of the parts except for the casting and shrinkage cracks, hot tears that do not significantly damage the strength of the member and or not considered to be cracked. A dead locomotive, a locomotive unable to produce tractive effort. Fire, anything that produces products, combustion of the heat transferring components of the locomotive as are exposed. The FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration, locomotive operator, the person entity which operates which does not necessarily own or one or more of the steam locomotives. This term is for the purpose of inspection and maintenance responsibility for the entity responsible for the day-to-day operation of the steam locomotive delegate through the entity made by the railroad or person who operates the steam locomotive under the contract for the locomotive owner person entity which owns which does not necessarily operate one or more steam locomotives is operated on a railroad in this which the part applies the purpose and inspection maintenance responsibility. The term includes the entity delegated as well. The maximum MAWP, maximum allowable work pressure, is as specified by the steam locomotive specification FRA form number 4, C and Appendix C for this part. NBIC, National Board Inspection Code, published by the National Board of Boiler Pressure Vessel Inspectors. NDE, Non-Destructive Examination. NPS, Nominal Pipe Size Person. Any the type of covered under Title 1 U.S. Standard Code 1, including not limited to the following: manager, following a railroad manager, supervisor, official, other employee, agent of the railroad owner, manufacturer, leaser, lessor of the railroad equipment, track or facility, independent contractor providing goods for services of the railroad, any employees of such manufacturer, leaser, lessor of the independent contract, railroad, any form non-highway ground transportation that runs on rails, electronic magnet guideways, and any entity provided by such a transportation, including the commuter, the short-haul railroad passenger service, and the metropolitan suburban area commuter railroad service that was operated in Consolidated Railroad Corporation on January 1st, 1979, high-speed ground transportation system that connected the metropolitan areas with regard to whether the system was new technology not associated with traditional rails, but does not include the rapid transit operation in the urban area that are not connected to the general railroad system of the transportation. The renewal, the replacement of the kind of the newly manufactured, remanufactured, restored, original, torn, tolerance component of the material shall be suitable for service and intended to repair any work of the which is result in the restoration of the kind, serious injury results of amputation by the appendage, the loss of sight in the eye, the fractured bone, the confinement of the hospital for a period of more than 24 hours consecutive hours. Service day: any calendar day that the boiler has steam pressure above atmospheric pressure from with fire in the firebox. But in the case of the fireless steamless locomotive, any calendar day the boiler has steam pressure above the atmospheric pressure. The stayed portion of the boiler: the portion boiler designed to require to support the rate, retain internal additional strength members in such as stay, boiler braces, additional stays, tubes, etc. Steam locomotive: the self-propelled unit equipment powered by steam is either designed or used to move by other equipment. It includes self-propelled unit designed to use to carry freight and passenger traffic. Unsafe portion of the boiler: the portion of the boiler designed to self-supported in a retaining internal pressure without additional strength members such as stables, braces, diagonal stays, and tubes, and etc. Wastage or reduction of thickness mechanical components such as a pipe and sheet. 2309. Information and collection. The information collection requirements are found in the following sections: 230.03, 230.12, 230.21, 230.33, 230.34, 230.41, 230.46, 230.47, 230.75, 230.96, 230.98, and 230.1106. That is the information collection collection requirements is found in these sections. 2310. Reserved general inspection repair requirements.